Well, there he is, the man with the dream job. Rob, how are you?
Good, Melton. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. A lot of things happening in the world, of course. Metallica embarking on all sorts of tours. Are you heading over to any of the shows overseas?
No, I won't unfortunately be at any of the overseas shows. I'll be at all the North American shows.
Okay, so right here in Southeast Michigan at Ford Field, that's November 10th and 12th. So you come in for both days, or how's that work?
Correct. Yeah, I'll be in for the whole weekend.
Oh, okay.
So I do a master distiller experience backstage, and then we've got the night in between, which is always amazing, and possibly throwing in some bottle signings, that sort of thing, in between.
Well, don't forget your friend Meltdown here on November 11th. So that's uh,
Excellent.
that's the day in between.
Oh yeah, good. Yes, I would love to see you out there.
Yeah, we'll have to get rolling with that. So tell everybody what this I saw the thing in Pittsburgh you did. So you bring bottles there and you got to let people taste them and you tell them how it's made and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we'll do this. We'll do this both nights. I'll do two sessions of basically whiskey education, do a little tasting, explain how our process, how we make the whiskey, and generally the first wave is all radio winners, which is always a lot of fun, and exciting, and then a lot of industry folks that are usually at the second wave. But I'll walk everybody through, our process, the blend of bourbon and rye, what sonic enhancement is, our black noise process. A lot of fun.
Yeah, the black noise process. Give us a little bit of a taste of what that's about.
I mean, this is where you get innovation at its finest. We are, in a world of making whiskey that is generally a lot of traditional methods. Being able to do something that's completely outside the box. We take Metallica music, of course, and we play it at a very low frequency. So we worked with Myers Sound, which is the sound company that creates that wall of sound for Metallica, all those speakers, systems. We worked specifically with them to create a proprietary device where we use low frequency music to pummel basically the whiskey aging in the barrels. So if you think of regular aging, during the heat of the day, the pores of the wood are open, the whiskey's moving into the wood of the barrel, picking up all that flavor, and then when it's colder, it expresses out in the belly. When you apply sonic enhancement, the black noise process, you're moving rapidly in and out of that wood, so you're picking up extra color, extra flavor, and we've got some science behind it, which is for me that's where I nerd out.
Now today, as we record this, it's June 21st. You guys have the 72 seasons batch out now.
Yes. Yeah. 20. Actually, today was the day we announced it.
Yeah. So if people are watching this later on down the road, they can now get that.
Yeah, they can. That is now in stores, and it's very recognizable. We're going with that Metallica, the yellow that they've chosen for this tour, and we've got 72 seasons on the bottle, and we've also got the Metallica M on the shrink at the top. Very, very good looking bottle. Limited release on this. But it's been a lot of fun putting it together.
Now with this batch here, I mean, this is probably an obvious statement, but you made it with the music from 72 Seasons playing.
Correct. Yeah. So what's wild about this is that the album wasn't even released. They had like maybe two songs that they had teased out, and so we had this kind of interesting in between kind of situation where we needed to use the entire album, but they didn't want it out in the world. They wanted to protect that. And so, but we needed to use the album to do the sonic enhancement on it. And so we kind of figured out a system. One, we were very careful and very protective of the entire album, but we figured out a system to make it work to where we were pretty confident that it wasn't going to get leaked, because I was nervous about that.
When did you start that process?
Oh my gosh.
The record came out on April 14th. So when do you start?
Right. Yeah. So April 14th, we had already been doing the sonic enhancement process. I think it started in February.
Okay, so 2 months or prior. Okay,
correct. Yeah,
I got you. Now, when you're coming around this time around on tour, is there going to be any cigar classes or anything like that?
I'm definitely going to have cigars with me. I don't know if we're going to be doing any cigar classes just because of the regulations inside of a stadium. Right. Obviously we won't be able to smoke inside the stadium. But I am doing some cigar events on the day in between. So anywhere that's got that does have the Blackened M81 cigar, as well as Blackened whiskey. I'll be doing a kind of a twofer. You know, walk you through how our whiskey process is, and then walk everyone through how James and Jonathan Drew and myself put this cigar together, and it's been a fun journey.
Now, were you a cigar guy before all this?
Yes, yeah. I love cigars. I started smoking cigars when I was in the army,
Okay.
and that was kind of something I picked up. I was a cigarette smoker back then, but I started getting into cigars, and really enjoying them and understanding. And then I met Jonathan Drew, who's the founder of Drew Estate Cigars, and went to Nicaragua with him and got to tour the cigar factory, probably like 8 years ago, I think. And there was always something in the background of like, hey, we should do a collaboration together at some point. And it was really kind of perfect because, obviously, James absolutely loves smoking cigars. And what we did was Drew Estate would send us a variety of different cigars, and we would keep a cigar journal. So we would smoke the cigar, keep a journal of like, okay, it's this one's a little spicy, this one's a little chocolatey, and kind of really narrowing it down what we liked and what we didn't like, and narrowing it down to a triple Maduro.
Now, is making a cigar consistently with the same like flavor or taste is difficult or easier than with making whiskey?
It's similar actually, because you've got a couple of years of fermentation, and then you're drying the leaves. A lot of times you'll see them in these big kind of piles, and that's where they're curing at that point. So it could take several years before that tobacco is ready to be able to roll into a cigar. So just like whiskey, we're making it on the front end and then aging it. So we've got several years we've got to wait before the whiskey's ready. So kind of similar in the sense, just kind of opposite.
Now, with your Blackened whiskey, where is that located? Is that in the middle of the country?
Yeah, so our production facility is in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, okay, all right.
So that's where we're producing the whiskey, and the cigars are being made in Nicaragua.
So you have warehouses full of barrels right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always about with whiskey, it's always about the long game. It's always about I always kind of feel like I'm living in the past, present, and future. What we laid down in the past affects what we can bottle today, and what we're laying down now in a barrel is going to affect what we can bottle in the future.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of this weird kind of dimension of algorithm of maintaining the whiskey inventory.
How intense is this job that you have, where you have to like control? I mean, theoretically, Metallica's brand as far as it comes to this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's what I pride myself on. I am where the rubber hits the road as far as maintaining the quality and consistency of the whiskey, and then coming up with new expressions and always evolving the whiskey. You're always going to be fine tuning. I think it's like a hot rod. Hot rod. I mean, it sounds great, but you're always fine tuning that thing because you got to keep that thing on the road.
Are you a hot rod guy?
Oh yeah, I hot rods, motorcycles. I like, I've got a few vintage motorcycles. I've had a few hot rods throughout the years. Right now, my project that I'm working, I've got a 1941 Dodge Power Wagon, and that thing is just a beast.
What motor is in it?
It's a straight 8.
Okay.
So it's like a flathead.
Straight 8. Wow. Okay.
But it was made by Spitfire, which made the airplane engines during World War II. So
yeah.
The engine. Yeah.
I got my Harley in the shop right now, and it sprung a little bit of a leak, and that's turned into a whole major ordeal. But anyways, I should have that back soon. But I remember I asked James specifically one time back when they brought Orion here, which I think was 10 years ago, actually almost to the day. But I asked him how many hot rods he had or how many muscle cars he had, and he started laughing, and he says, "I have no idea."
and that's probably true. I was very fortunate to get a chance to go out to the Peterson Museum, where he had donated 10 of his cars from his car collection, and just some incredible stuff. That he's not only restored some really beautiful vintage vehicles, but he's also created some from scratch, like literally drawn them out on a piece of paper and figured out how to literally make the lines on one of the cars that he had.
Yeah, like kind of like a Chip Foose type thing.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I mean, and it's got to be a lot of fun. I mean, to be able to just sit there and design a car from the ground up, and there's some just absolutely beautiful, stunning work. He's got a book out called um, Restored Rust,
Yeah.
and it's got a lot of those books it's got a lot of the cars that he had donated to the Peterson Museum.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is James the guy that you're like most in touch with in the band?
Yeah, I mean, we live an hour and a half away from each other in
Right.
Colorado.
Yeah.
So and especially during COVID, when the band wasn't touring, I wasn't going anywhere. I was spending a lot of time up at James's house, smoking cigars and just connecting over a mutual interest, life, talking about family, and really just connected over, honestly, over cigars and hot rods and vintage bikes.
Yeah. James is he's a good guy. I've had a chance to meet him and interview him a bunch of times. And
Yeah.
he's just like yeah, he's like my rock star. It's like that guy is like, a guy you can relate to.
Without a doubt, and he's just very down to earth. He knows what he likes. He knows what he spends a lot of time, in the mountains. We're both avid hunters, so we talk a lot about that, and we have a kind of a good rapport with. That guy can barbecue. I will tell you. I mean, he will throw down a rack of ribs.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you remember the first Metallica song you ever heard?
Oh yeah, Master of Puppets.
Oh, was it Master? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that was the first one that I had heard. I was at my buddy Paul's house, and he was like my metalhead friend. We're listening to everything, and he's like, "You got to hear these guys." And I was like, "What the hell is this? This is amazing!" Like this was the first time I was like, "Okay, this is my music."
Hmm.
That was
That was about 6 or 7. Well, yeah, 6, 7 years into their career. Right at the time, was it brand new at the time, or was it out for a little bit, or what?
I think it just come out, so this
Okay,
was like early, it was like probably
86.
yeah, early to mid '80s.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the first record I ever bought, the first vinyl I ever bought was "Ride the Lightning." And I still have that actual album.
Nice. Oh man. I mean, I was all cassette tapes. My parents had vinyl, so I was buying vinyl. And I think I remember my first vinyl record that I bought was Van Halen.
Hmm.
Uh, and and I think after that, then then I had like Def Leppard, and then uh and then it was Metallica, which I think at the time there was a little pushback from my folks because they were like, wait, this might be a little too much.
Now, when were you in the service? What years?
92 to 95.
And how much did music play in that aspect of your life?
Oh man, that was huge. I did 3 deployments when I was I was with the 10th Mountain Division. Did 2 tours in Somalia during the Black Hawk Down incident, and then I did a tour in Haiti. And at the time we had the Armed Forces Affiliated Network would pipe in, a radio station. There was a DJ named his show was Mayhem in Mogadishu,
Oh,
and he would play anything from Alice in Chains to Metallica, and I had my own cassette tapes. I had a Walkman that I brought with me, and so I mean, and Justice for All was probably I listened to that thing on repeat,
hmm.
and so that was one of the records. Alice in Chains, Rooster was that was like kind of our song, like in Vietnam, you think of Paint It Black or um, you know,
The Doors or something.
yeah, exactly. For us, it was definitely Metallica, but Rooster kind of became our anthem
Yeah.
from Alice in Chains.
Yeah, that was that was when I first started out in radio too. And I always remember playing all those songs that were brand new on the radio at the time, back in the early '90s. And now we're all talking about them in classic form.
Oh, I know. Now it's classic, but that was our anthem for sure.
Yeah. So you've been doing this job now for a few years. I mean, it's had to exceed your expectations, hasn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. I've stated this before, but it's just really it's worth repeating. I have my dream job within my dream job.
Yeah.
I get to make whiskey, but I get to make whiskey with Metallica, and that it couldn't be any better than that.
And this coming summer, so you will be out of town, you'll be in towns or whatever on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, wherever they're playing when they come back to the States.
Correct. Yeah. So I'll be a lot of times I'm flying in on Thursday, flying out on Monday.
Mm.
But I'm doing all the North American tours. I'll be up there in Detroit. Um, but I'll be everything in North America, including Canada. So I'm doing some of the Canadian legs as well. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I might travel and check out some of those shows. As a matter of fact, I might see you before the Detroit show at that Power Trip. Are you going to be there?
I'm supposed to be. I'm not sure if I'm going to be yet or not.
Because I mean, that festival, when it first came out, I'm thinking, okay, this is an April Fool's Day joke.
I know. I was looking at that lineup. I was like, wow, these are all. I didn't get to see a lot of those bands when I was younger because I grew up in Southern Colorado, pretty remote. I was like 6 hours away from Denver, so anything that was playing, there was Monsters of Rock that would come through Denver. And my buddies would get all their money together and like road trip over. And unfortunately, I missed going on one of those. But this is kind of that same lineup. I mean, this is an epic lineup.
Yeah, just completely insane. And then you're also working with Wes Henderson with Blackened X. Talk about that. Now, Wes Henderson, for the people that don't know, his father was Lincoln Henderson, and he was like a legend in the bourbon industry, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's like bourbon whiskey royalty.
Okay.
Lincoln Henderson, and Wes, they co-founded Angel's Envy Whiskey.
Right.
And we have this program that's called the Masters of Whiskey series. And this is where I collaborate with other master distillers. I did a collaboration with Drew Colesveen of Willet Distillery. And then we have the collaboration I did with Wes Henderson. And Wes is he was good friends with Dave Pickerel, who was my predecessor at Blackened. And so I've really felt it was important that we did a collaboration together, not only honoring Dave, but also being able to put together some incredible whiskey. And that's, that was number 2 in our series. We've got number 3 coming out this year. I'm not at liberty to be able to speak about who that collaboration is with yet. We're very, very close. That'll be a fall release, but we're excited. And then I'm working with another great whiskey and distillery next year as well. So we're keeping this thing going. It just, in the heart of the way Metallica likes to collaborate with other bands and other musicians, we're doing the same thing in whiskey. We're collaboration because we're always focused on the day in, day out of making our product the best that we possibly can. Being able to kind of let your hair down a little bit and have some fun and do like a little art piece on the side is kind of how the Masters of Whiskey started, as be able to create something with another industry, legendary industry professional and be able to make some whiskey magic.
Now, did you know some of these guys? I mean, have you known some of these guys for a while or just?
I have, yeah. It's kind of a small industry when you kind of narrow it down to whiskey makers and master distillers. I was the master distiller at Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey for 12 years. I wasn't the master distiller the entire time, but that was the last portion of it. And so you really get to know a lot of folks when you're at these industry events, Whiskey Fest. That's put on by Whiskey Advocate magazine. There are Whiskey X. There's all these events where you get to, not only are you public facing and really explaining how you make your whiskey, but you're also able to it's kind of like a reunion. You're getting to see people that you normally don't get to see on a regular basis.
Can you point back to like one decision or one instance that hooked you up with the Metallica guys?
There's kind of two. The main one was I was at the event in San Francisco where Dave Pickerel had passed away. And that hits our very small industry very hard, and so and that was at a whiskey fest in San Francisco. And a month later, I was at the whiskey fest in New York, and I went over to their booth and I talked to their sales director, and I just said, hey, I want to offer my condolences. Dave was a great guy. He was a friend, and sorry to hear that he had passed. And we talked about him for a while, and then he said, look, I know this may seem kind of sudden. He goes, but we need a master distiller. And he goes, I think you would be perfect. He goes, with everything you're doing with cask finishing, you got your rock and roll background from years being in the music industry. as a stagehand and rigger and stage manager. He's like, this is a perfect fit. Is that something you'd be interested in? I said, well, let's definitely talk. I mean, and then the other connection was I have a friend who is friends with James Hetfield in the, up in the mountains. Their kids were playing soccer together. And he was a big fan of what I was doing at Stranahan's, my buddy. And he had called me up and he said, hey, at first he had called me about Dave Pickerel, and he said, hey, these guys are, Metallica's thinking about doing a whiskey. What do you think about this Dave Pickerel guy? And I was like, oh my God, they've got the cream of the crop, the best guy they could possibly get. And I said, and let me know, if it needs to be, if I ever can get a chance to get in here. And then after Dave passed, he had mentioned that to James. He said, hey, I know this guy, Colorado boy who's knows what he's doing with whiskey. So it kind of came from two different directions, kind of came through the director of sales and through kind of a 1 degree of separation from James.
Yeah. Sometimes you never know what kind of connections you're going to make. And like you said, you just want to talk to the guy and send your condolences. And here comes like kind of an offer.
It was. And he said, look, he goes, I'll get your number and I'll give you a shout. And I didn't hear anything. That was in December. And I think in February, I was in Oaxaca, Mexico. I was down there with a buddy touring some mezcal palenques, some distilleries down there. And we were considering importing mezcal and making our own mezcal brand. That was what we were down there for. And I get this call while I was there, and I was like, oh wait, that's the Blackened sales director. I picked it up, and he's like, hey man, we want to do an interview with you. He's like, we're interviewing different distillers. At the time I was told that they had like about a dozen distillers that they were all interviewing. And I was like, absolutely. I'm in Mexico right now. When I get back, I'll come meet you wherever you want. And they said, well, we'll fly out to you in Colorado. So that's what they did. They came out to Colorado. We did the first interview. I went through like 3 interviews in that whole process. And they kept narrowing it down. It was like, oh, we're down to like 10 distillers now that we're looking at. Now we're down to 6. And it was funny because it kind of felt like it was like American Idol or something of like distillers, everybody just kind of getting narrowed down. And my last interview was with the band and at HQ in San Rafael. And it was, and I, in my mind, I knew there were other distillers they were looking at, and I thought, okay, at the very least, I get to meet the band and have a sit down and really enjoy this experience, regardless of how it turns out. And how I found out I had the job was I interviewed individually with each member of the band, and then I spent some time with James. That's where we first connected over motorcycles and kind of everything. And he asked me, he said, hey, I understand you're a veteran, that you served overseas in combat. And I said, yeah. And he said, I've got something for you. And he stands up and he pulled out a Metallica coin. And he, if any veterans out there, anytime you receive a challenge coin, you receive it in a handshake, and that's received in a handshake. And James knew how to give the coin. And he shook my hand. He said, thank you for your service. And he said, welcome to the family, and gave me this hug. And I looked down at my hand, and the coin is the scary guy. And it says, I am family, forever trust in who we are. Wow. Nothing else matters. And I was like, I get goosebumps when I think about it, because it was really probably one of the more extraordinary things to have ever happened to me at that time.
If you have a challenge coin, you have to have it on you. So do you have it on you?
It's not on me. It's in my desk.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I try to test you on that one.
Yes. Yeah. I got a few challenge coins from the military. So I need a special bandolier of these things.
Yeah. I was just telling you that tonight here in Detroit is 3 doors down, and they actually gave me a challenge coin back in 2018. I'll tell you about that when we get done. But cool. Yeah, that's a great story. I think that I've heard, you've told me that before, but it's such a great listen, and they just seem, that really is a family in that band. And I mean, and it's funny because you talked earlier about how you can't smoke in some of these stadiums and whatnot, but James is constantly smoking these cigars before he goes on stage. You probably seen some of the video out there.
I see a lot of videos of him. He's smoking the Blackened M81 cigar, which is awesome. But that's all in Europe.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to be like in the US as far as him getting it. But they also, they pull pyro permits, fire permits. So he's got to be, I'm sure that falls under the pyro permit. So if that's the case, then I might be smoking some cigars back there.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like, what are they going to say? It's like Kid Rock goes up on stage and smokes in an arena. What do they say to him? You can't say anything to him. You know?
No. And I'm sure that all fits under the pyro permit.
Yeah. So wrapping things up here. So this year you're going to do the Metallica shows. You said you got another whiskey collaboration with somebody else coming up, actually, and then another one next year. What else you got going
on? I've got those. I'm working on a few other expressions, just some ideas that I've been tossing around. So there's always something going on. I've got my lab at home in Colorado. I'm always playing around with different blends and different expressions, and really just kind of fine tuning the process.
Yeah. Well, Rob, as always, it's always great to see and talk to you. And as always, thank you for your service. I like to say that because, obviously you guys sacrifice so I can do this ridiculousness all the time, but I appreciate that, as you know. So,
well, it's very kind of you, Meltdown. I appreciate you saying that. It's always a pleasure talking with you, man. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person out there.
Yep, coming back. So yeah, last time was in Pittsburgh, and that was, and then next time we'll be right here in the Motor City, if not sooner. So
I'm looking forward to it, man. It's been a while since I've been out there.
Yeah. All right, Rob. Well, listen, you be well. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, my friend.